This is the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Here Machado laces it in the air to deep left. This one gonna go!
Coming up, we'll recap the last Padres game, preview today's starting pitching matchup, give you our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Craig Stammen. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. As today the Padres take on the Seattle Mariners in the first game of a 3-game series. Our starting pitching matchup tonight for the Mariners, right-hander Emerson Hancock, and for the Padres, right-hander Randy Vasquez. Hi, good everyone. Sam Levitt with you from inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up in Seattle at 6:40 p.m. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do. We'll hear from Padres manager Craig Stammen. I go one-on-one with longtime Mariners radio voice Rick Rizzs. A great conversation with Rick coming up later about his career. We check in with Padres radio voice Jesse Agler. Our keys to today's game, a full breakdown of today's starting pitching matchup, and much, much more. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres entered today 25-18. They lost 2 of 3 in Milwaukee to begin this 6-game road trip. Mariners, meanwhile, are 22-23. Mariners just won 3 of 4 against the Astros in Houston. Seattle now 14-10 in their last 14 games after beginning the year just 8-13. Remember, these 2 teams already met in San Diego in mid-April. Padres swept that 3-game series. That was during that 8-game win streak the Padres had in April. Not to begin today's pregame coverage on a sour note, but a big story continues to be the Padres' overall lack of offense, despite now being 7 games over 500 entering the weekend. The Padres enter today ranking last in team batting average in the major leagues at 222. They also rank 3rd to last in team OPS. Here was Padres president of baseball operations and general manager AJ Preller earlier today right here on 97.3 The Fan on the Padres' offensive struggles.
On the positive side is that we've found a way to win a lot of baseball games, and we're, sitting there, near or at the top of the standing for most of the first 40 games, which is kind of the quarter point, and a lot of guys contributing, obviously a lot of big swings late in games. And, at the same point in time, we all know that, overall over the course of 162, we know what kind of the standards are and what you need to get to as a group. And, and we haven't swung the bat the way we need to. And our offense overall, if we're going to be there at the end of the season and not just after 40 games, I think, everybody in the building, everybody on the team will tell you, yeah, we're capable of more. So, I think the part I think that, I think we all understand is that, there's a lot of belief in Manny and Fernando and, Xander and Jackson and that group, that they've won a lot of games. They've gotten us in the playoffs multiple times. They'll be the first to tell you they've got to be better, and they understand that. And, again, you look at the track record of those guys and also the want to, I think sometimes you see Manny, you see how easy he plays the game and how well he's played the game over his career. And I think all of this just comes easy to him. Like he works really hard for it, and he's down there grinding every day, trying to figure out, why he hasn't had the first 40 games that he's capable of. The positive, like you were mentioning, is that we've done this and we haven't seen what those guys at their best, and we know that's coming. So, that's the focus every day for us, is trying to figure out like how we get there as a group and how to help those guys individually, but a lot of belief that those guys are going to get there for us.
That was Padres president of baseball operations and general manager AJ Preller earlier today right here on 97.3 The Fan. A quick look at the Padres lineup today in this series opener in Seattle looks like this. Jackson Merrill in center field leading off. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right batting second. Manny Machado at third base batting third. Gavin Sheets at first base batting cleanup. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting fifth. Miguel Andujar is the DH today batting sixth. Ramon Laureano in left field batting seventh. 7th. Sung Moon Song in the lineup today playing second base and batting 8th. And Freddie Fermin is doing the catching and batting 9th with, again, right-hander Randy Vasquez on the hill. Let's go up to the Pacific Northwest.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, Jesse, entering the weekend, the story for the Padres in an overall sense continues to be, unfortunately, the lack of offense. You look at the series in Milwaukee, and if not for the swing by Gavin Sheets on Wednesday, there was a chance the Padres would have been swept. Not to start this conversation on a negative note, but I guess in a broad sense, your thoughts on the Padres offense, where they are as they enter a series against a good American League team that's playing well.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to have to obviously score more runs and get more hits, all that kind of stuff as the season goes along. I think, if you want to take the positive look at it, they've managed to win 25 games to just 18 losses at this point, not getting enough out of their offense. And I think that's a great tribute to their sort of, ability to win games late. That goes to the bullpen. That goes to the starting pitchers for keeping them in the games that they've kept them in. It certainly goes to those, late inning heroics that they've had and the things they've been able to do in those dramatic victories. But there's more that they're going to have to get. You can't lean on that. Do I think they're going to be able to, win more games like that over the course of the season? I do. I do think that's one of those things that within a season can stick a little bit. I do think there's a belief in that clubhouse that they can win games like that, but I don't think it's something you can really rely on, so to speak, over the course of 162 and beyond. So, yeah, look, they know that. Everybody down there who has struggled so far this year offensively is working tirelessly to try and get the bats going. And look, there's no doubt. I mean, it's very, very obvious when you look at the numbers that, they need more. Manny Machado hitting 190 is not going to get it done. Fernando Tatis Jr. not having a home run in mid-May, not going to get it done. But the good news is you certainly don't expect either one of those things to last.
Let's talk a little bit about today's pitching matchup. A couple of young right-handers that are doing really good things. Randy Vasquez, for the most part, has been good. He's certainly given the Padres a chance to win pretty much every time out. Emerson Hancock, a really promising young right-hander. He was pretty good against the Padres earlier this year. How do you frame this pitching matchup here tonight?
Yeah, no, you got it right. I mean, two really good young guys, and Hancock, like so many of these Mariners, he's just a strike machine. He's going to come on the attack. He's going to come right after you. He's going to throw a bunch of strikes. He's going to try and get ahead. It seems like, with every one of these Seattle pitchers, it's 0-1 all the time. I mean, it's kind of a remarkable thing to watch. And, Randy, generally speaking, has been very, very good this year. There's been a hiccup here and there. But I love the way that he's throwing the baseball. And look, it seems like every time we come to this place, it's sort of like the bizarro Coors Field, right? You're having the conversation about suppressed offense and great pitching, and it's hard to hit the ball out of the park. And it is quite chilly here, by the way. I don't know if you've talked about that yet, but it's definitely not a big offensive environment, and it's definitely a pitcher's park. And so we'll see how that plays out here tonight. But a couple of guys who know what they're doing, a couple of guys. It's kind of neat, and we'll talk about this more. I talked to Craig Stammen about it before the game today. Whose fastballs are just completely different this year than they were last year. And because of that, they've gotten just very different results this year than they got last year. And we've obviously talked about Randy and the swing and miss and the strikeouts skyrocketing in 2026 as compared to 2025. Very similar story for Hancock, which is neat that they're going head-to-head with one another for the second time this season because it's a little bit of a parallel story there. But, it's a great place to pitch. I'm sure Randy will look to try and take advantage of that.
Jesse, I want to finish up our conversation today by mentioning Rick Rizzs, the longtime Mariners radio voice, retiring at the end of the year. He's been in Seattle for more than 40 seasons. He's been in professional baseball calling games for more than 50 years. I have what I think is a really good conversation coming up with him a little bit later in our pregame coverage. I told him when I saw him in San Diego, he's an example of what a long, successful, great career as a Major League Baseball broadcaster, what it looks like, and one of the best in the business and just a great guy as well.
He is all of that. He is also, as important as any of that, I think an example to every broadcaster out there, young, old, or in between, as to just sort of how you should sound doing a game.
Yeah.
And I don't mean stylistically. I don't mean from a vocabulary standpoint. I just mean from an enthusiasm standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You tune in to hear Rick Rizzs, and this is something we all could remember more often. And you would not know, just based on the tone of his voice or the enthusiasm in his voice, whether the Mariners are winning 8-0, losing 8-0, or if the game is tied 2-2 in the bottom of the ninth, because he always sounds enthusiastic. He always sounds excited. And that's just not human nature, right? Human nature is, if the game is 2-2 in the bottom of the ninth, there's a certain tone of voice that goes with that. If your team is up 8-0, there's a certain tone of voice that goes with that. If your team is down 8-0, there's a certain tone of voice that goes with that. And he has somehow sort of bulldozed his way past that human nature to bring a boyish and just exuberant enthusiasm to it every single pitch, no matter the score, no matter the point in the season, no matter what the standings look like. And the reality is, for so many of his 41 years here in Seattle, the standings didn't look great for the Mariners. And you would just never, ever know listening to Rick. And, prior to coming to San Diego 13 years ago, I had never met Rick. I hadn't really heard much of Rick. And luckily, these two teams share the spring training facility in Peoria. So I've gotten to know Rick very, very well in my time in San Diego. So not only have I been able to learn so much from listening to Rick, but I've gotten the opportunity to spend a lot of time around him. And he is just a wonderful man, a tremendous human being. He's a guy, I was just talking to him with Tony downstairs a little while ago in the lunchroom here. Going to miss seeing him very, very much in spring training and during the year when we play the Mariners, because he's just a fantastically kind human being and a wonderful, wonderful broadcaster. You and I both get the opportunity to talk to and meet a lot of, young people who want to be announcers, whether they're guys in the minor leagues or in college or just, maybe kids who want to be announcers when they grow up. I'll say to all of you who might be listening right now, go listen to Rick Rizzs. Just pull an inning at some point and listen to how Rick calls a game, and you'll learn some great lessons. Yeah, absolutely. Great guy, great broadcaster, and he'll definitely be missed around the ballpark. Wishing him a fantastic final season in the booth. And again, great conversation with him coming up a little bit later. Jesse, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Tony coming up at 6:30. Thanks so much. You got it, Sam. All right, Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network. Again, first pitch coming up at 6:40 for this series opener between the Padres and the Mariners in Seattle. When we come back, we tell you about a move the Padres made earlier today. We'll hear from Padres manager Craig Stammen a little bit later, keys to the game, and much, much more as we get ready for first pitch on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show. This is the Padres Radio Network.
Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 6:40 in Seattle. Game 1 of this 3-game series over the weekend between the Padres and the Mariners. A lot to do on our pregame coverage. We'll hear from Craig Stammen in just a moment. Who's hot, who's not, coming up in this segment as well. And we'll take a look at some headlines from around the major leagues. Padres did make a move earlier today. They recalled right-hander Alec Jacob from AAA El Paso. That was because they put right-hander Matt Waldron on the 15-day IL with a right brachialis muscle injury. So again, Waldron to the 15-day IL, Alec Jacob getting called up from AAA El Paso. Expectation has been that Lucas Giolito would make his Padres debut at some point this weekend in Seattle. Let's hear more about that from Craig Stammen.
Let's pull up a seat in a manager's office and hear from Padres skipper Craig Stammen. Served up by Sinley Food. If you've had better chicken, you must be a rooster.
Matt came out of the game yesterday, a little barking in the bicep, the brachialis. So, unfortunate that, that happened. And, we were obviously, pitching him on short rest. Felt like he came in the game feeling good. All reports were good that he was good to go, but after the game just got a little stiffer than usual, a little bit more tired, a little sore today. And so, we had got to make a move to, get him out of there. And we got Alec Jacob in there today. So excited to have Alec with us.
Are you able to divulge what the rest of your rotation is going to look like for the rest of the series after today?
Yeah, so Buehler is going to go tomorrow, normal rest, and then Giolito will be starting on Sunday.
Anything you're expecting in the way of updates medically on Jake? Anytime you got anything new with him?
No, nothing new. He's still going through concussion protocol and all the stuff, the testing that goes into that daily. I mean, he's doing a lot behind the scenes, but, just concussion just shows you how, rough they are and how tough it is on a person going through them. And, we're probably all football fans too. And, that we hear a lot about the football guys getting concussions a lot. It's just, you wonder how these guys come back from them so quick. Jake's just having a tough time with it, and, rightly so. I'm glad that he said something finally and that we can get him right.
You think highly of Matt. That's clear. There is an upside. There is business that could have had to have been done, and now Matt will be able to. Do you think this might end up being good that you guys keep him for a while? Yeah, I think, it's never good when someone goes on the IL. That's not a good thing, but eventually we're going to have to make a move this weekend, I guess, if that's what you're referring to. But we'll get to that point when we get to that point. Matt we feel very good with him on our team. We like what he brings to the table. He gives us a lot of options, rotation depth, and he can pitch out of the bullpen. He's got a unique pitch. So hopefully it doesn't take long and we get him back soon. Do you guys have any, or do you have any clarity at all on this type of injury? Because it's a pretty rare injury in terms of how long it might be. I wouldn't say it's rare. A lot of guys go through this type of thing and try to pitch through it, which is what he was trying to do. And then it finally gets to a certain point where you're like, well, I'm not as good as I should be when I'm out on the mound. And I think that's what he was starting to feel is if I'm going to be out there, I want to be 100%. I don't want to be at 80% trying to gut it out. And he didn't need to do that. And so now we have time to be able to settle him down a little bit and get him back out there where he's 100%.
Do you have a target for how many days it's going to be before he starts throwing again?
Do not have a target for that, no.
With Giolito, it's going to be a week since his last start in the minors. What was it that signaled that he was ready for this?
Yeah, I think his last time he went 6 innings. That's a good sign. We got his pitch count up. And then also, part of it is his contract says he's only allowed to be in the minor leagues for 25 days. So all those things together worked out, kind of how we planned it when we first got him.
Craig, you talked about it before, but with sort of the pitching technology now, you got 2 starters tonight. Fastball's very different than last year, getting very different results this year. You just speak generally about, what guys are able to do now, maybe versus what they were able to do even previously.
Yeah, I think you have the technology to be able to do it, and the other part is pitchers are pitching all year round. They're throwing in the off season. I went back, even when I was a starter, I was throwing the week before Christmas. And you just don't have enough time to, change a whole lot of stuff. You perfect with what you already have. And then guys are using the offseason to, not only perfect their stuff, but even change their repertoire a little bit and tinker with other things that might, take them to the next level. And I think we've, Hancock especially seen that, and Randy, the work that he put in this season, has turned into a really valuable piece for us.
That was Padres manager Craig Stammen earlier today inside the Padres dugout. We'll hear more from Craig on our post-game coverage coming up later on this evening. Sam Levitt back with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch is coming up at 6:40 in Seattle. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to step up their game? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not. Presented by ASAP Drain Guys and Plumbing, a division of Anderson Commercial, your full-service plumber serving San Diego County.
One guy in the hot category, Gavin Sheets, who's playing first base and cleaning up today, 4 for his last 8 with that big home run on Wednesday in Milwaukee. The not category, well, some guys that are very important to this Padres offense that they desperately need to get going. Ramon Laureano, 3 for 33 since the beginning of May. Manny Machado, he's just 3 for 38 in his last 10 games. Jackson Merrill, 3 for 26 in his last 7 games. And Fernando Tatis Jr., 0 for 5 yesterday, now 7 for his last 41. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not as we get ready for this series opener. Now let's take a look at some quick headlines from around the major leagues.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you Around the Horn, presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Injury news, the theme of today's headlines. Yankees placing starter Max Fried on the IL today because of a left elbow bone bruise. He underwent an MRI and a CT scan yesterday before being examined in New York by the Yankees team physician. Sounds like Fried will undergo another round of tests in a few weeks to determine when he can resume throwing. But it does sound like Max Fried will miss some time for the Yankees. Some big news in Dodgerland today. Blake Snell has loose bodies in his left elbow. He was scratched from his start against the Angels today. Snell will get surgery to remove those loose bodies, and Dave Roberts saying that he is likely to miss significant time, and we'll see when he does come back. The thought is, according to Dave Roberts, that he'll be back with the Dodgers this season, but that is going to be a while for Blake Snell. He is on the IL, and he will have the surgery to remove loose bodies in that left elbow. The Orioles, Jordan Westberg, one of their key young infielders, he had Tommy John surgery on his injured right elbow, and he will miss the remainder of the 2026 season. Finally, Tigers ace Tarek Skubal, who recently had surgery to remove a bone chip from his elbow. He's already started playing catch and lightly tossing, has started a throwing program. So, according to Tigers manager AJ Hinch, sounds like a ramp up will continue, and encouraging news there that Skubal is already throwing for the Tigers. And that is a quick look at some of the headlines from around the major leagues. When we come back, I go one-on-one with longtime Seattle Mariners radio voice Rick Rizzs, who's been with the Mariners now for more than 40 seasons, 50 plus years, calling professional baseball. He's retiring at the end of this season. Terrific broadcaster, terrific man. And I catch up with Rick Rizzs in his final season in the booth when we come back on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for today's game against the Seattle Mariners. And right now I'm joined by the great radio voice of the Seattle Mariners, that is Rick Rizzs, who has been in Major League Baseball a long, long time, over 40 years, more than 50 years in baseball when you think about his time in the minor leagues. Rick, in the midst now of his final season with the Mariners, announced before the season started. Rick, when I just say all that to you, 40-plus years in the big leagues, 50-plus years in baseball, what's your reaction?
Sam, I can't believe it. I started when I was 7 years old, so it's really gone by fast. No, I was very fortunate. I got a break after 8 years in the minor leagues. I paid my dues, and I worked with the greatest broadcaster of all time in my mind, Dave Niehaus. But I look back on it, Sam, and I go, wow, I can't believe it's been that long. 52nd season, 44th in big leagues. I've been living my dream because this is something that I wanted to do ever since I was 12 years old. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, Sam, so I had the best of both worlds. I had the Cubs during the day and the White Sox at night. And I'd come home and my mom would be watching the Cubs on a little black and white TV set in the kitchen. Then I'd go downstairs, turn on the TV, turn down the sound, and pretend I was Jack Brickhouse, the Hall of Fame broadcaster for the Chicago Cubs, and do play-by-play. So ever since I was 12 years old, I wanted to do this. I wrote him a letter when I was 12. He wrote me back a letter, and here I am, wrapping up a long career in the big leagues. The best part of it is meeting folks like yourself and Jesse and Tony Gwynn Jr. and Mud and Donnie and all the great broadcasters around the major leagues. But it's been a heck of a journey.
Amazing. When you think back to that first major league game, you mentioned your time in the minor leagues, and I do want to talk about that a little as well. But that first major league game, you sit down, the great Dave Niehaus is your partner, Yankees, Mariners. What do you remember about that day?
Well, I remember that I wasn't in Kansas anymore, Toto. I mean, bus rides from Memphis, Tennessee to Orlando, Toledo, Amarillo, Texas to Jackson, Mississippi. And what I remember is like the Kingdom was like the Taj Mahal. I've never seen anything like that. It was a concrete dome stadium that was used for everything, football, basketball, tractor pulls, and everything else. But I was no longer in the minor leagues. It was the Seattle Mariners against the New York Yankees. And I was scared stiff. It was Gaylord Perry against Ron Guidry. And I'll never forget, the game starts and Dave Niehaus is the greatest of all time. He's so eloquent in that voice of his. And it became my inning in the third inning. But before that, I was so excited, talking way too much. And Dave Niehaus reached over, turned off my microphone and said, "You don't have to talk after every pitch." I go, okay, Dave. All right, Dave. So I settled in. And it was a great journey with David. I was with him for 25 years. He taught me so much about the game, about this wonderful job of broadcasting Major League Baseball. And but that's where I remember. Richie Zisk hit a home run. I had a chance to call it. That was my first home run, a goodbye baseball in the big leagues. And I can't believe that was 43, 44 years ago.
We're joined by the voice of the Seattle Mariners, Rick Rizzs, on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show as the Padres get ready to take on the Seattle Mariners today. We always ask players, how has the game changed? Even retired players, how the game has changed over the course of years and decades. Some of it in broadcasting is obvious, the technology and the way the world has changed. But to you, when you think back to even the minor leagues in the 70s, I mean, how has this, in your eyes, all changed now sitting here in 2026?
It's changed a lot, from the pitching side where guys, when they started the game, they wanted to finish it. And now if you go 6 innings, you're doing your job. You really are, because you got, 7 guys out of the bullpen throwing 100 miles an hour. And it's that side of it has really changed. And all of a sudden, years ago, I think we went for power, for hitting home runs and exit velocity and all that instead of putting the ball in play. That was the thing. If you didn't put the ball in play, you went down to the minor leagues. If you couldn't lay down a bunt, if you couldn't hit a ground ball at the right side of the infield to move a runner from second to third, if you couldn't hit a fly ball to get a runner in from third with less than 2 outs, you couldn't play in the big leagues. But now it's a different story. We try to hit the ball hard and far, and the averages have come way down. So that part of it, has changed. The bullpens have definitely changed. Like I said, with guys throwing 100 in your case with Mason Miller, 104, 103 miles an hour. Our guy is doing a great job, Andres Munoz. But I think that's the biggest change of the game, going from, a contact game, a lot of strategy to hitting the ball out of the ballpark. It's still a great game. I still love this game.
Yeah.
And it's still the greatest game in the world.
Rick, on the broadcasting side of things, I guess in one sense you still sit down, scorebook out, put on the headset. But how has that side of things changed when you look back at the very early part of your career in the 80s to what it is now?
Yeah, it's, the game is still the game, and I still love the preparation. And you do it, Sammy, and so does Jesse and Tony. But the fun part for me is when Kevin Kremen, our producer, engineer, and now Gary Hill Jr., we start the game.
Yeah.
That's the joy. The work part is the pregame show, getting all the information, which is still fun for me, and I love it. I mean, I just worked for hours on the preparation of tonight's game, the starters and the two clubs and everything. But the fun part is being the conduit between the players and the fans, and to be able to sit down and hopefully choose our words correctly and the right tempo and the right inflection, that we can make the fans feel like I put them in the front row here at Petco Park, the fans back in the Northwest. And if we can do that, Sammy, we're doing our jobs.
Yeah. You and I share something in common. We both worked in minor league baseball in Amarillo, Texas. In fact, I got to know you a little bit when I was in Amarillo before I ever arrived in San Diego. How do you reflect on those minor league days going back to the 1970s?
Oh, my gosh, Sam, those were long seasons and fun years. We played on the fairgrounds there in Amarillo, Texas. I'll never forget. Across the street was the Western Stockyards, the largest stockyards west of the Mississippi. And if the wind blew in, you can smell that cow stink, blowing in. You go, if the wind was blowing in, I go, oh no, it's going to be a long night. But what I had to do there in Amarillo is recreate for 2 years. When the team was on the road, I went to the studio. We started the game half an hour after it started. I had a crowd noise tape, and it made it sound like we're at the ballpark. Then I recorded a ball hitting the bat at spring training and cheering. And so I was sitting in the studio broadcasting a game.
Right.
And so that's what I remember. And I learned a lot from that, because you really have to use your imagination. One time I got too close to the action. I was out of things that were happening. So I had to make it rain one time. Gene Moniz, our second baseman, set a Texas League record with, 20 foul balls, and then also it was pony night in El Paso. And I had the pony get loose, and our right fielder chased it around the outfield for about 10 minutes, so you had to be a little creative, but it was fun. We were in the same boat together. Harold Reynolds, his older brother, Donnie Reynolds, was my roommate. We were Padres Farm Club.
Right.
We were AA Farm Club. Donnie Reynolds was our left fielder. We had a really good team. A lot of guys went up to San Diego, and we won a Texas League title. That's what I remember in Amarillo, Texas in 1976. Bob Miller was our manager, the former Dodger pitcher, reliever, and he pitched for about 10 other ball clubs. But he made it fun for the guys. He made it fun for me. And it was one of the best years broadcasting in minor league baseball.
Such amazing stories, such great memories from those days in Amarillo and beyond. I'll finish up with this, because San Diego and Seattle do have something in common, and that is each team, each fan base still searching for that elusive first World Series title. And here in San Diego, the fans are so amazing. They're so deserving of it. Same thing in Seattle. So let me ask you, what do you think it would mean to the fans, the city of Seattle, and more personally to you, if the Mariners were to win a World Series and maybe you could be on the call?
Sam, one word would be everything. This is why the guys put on a uniform, is to get to the World Series and win it. You've been there twice, in 84 and 98. We've never been there. This is why the fans come out to the ballpark. We have one of the most exciting teams in the game of baseball right now. Danny Wilson, our manager, has done a great job. The coaching staff, these guys, Cal Raleigh, historic year last year, Julio Rodriguez, his pitching staff. It would mean everything, because they have waited for so long. It took us 15 years to have our first winning season, from 1977 to 1991. And then 4 years later, we finally got to the postseason for the first time. That 1995 team got there. And if they don't beat the Yankees in the division series, we're in Tampa Bay. So that year was impactful. It was historic. So these fans have been waiting for a long time. I've been waiting for a long time. I'm a fan of the Seattle Mariners. You guys have been waiting for a long time to win a whole shebang, but it would mean everything. The city would go absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe come October, we're sitting here once again, and somebody's going home with that elusive first World Series title. Rick, really appreciate the time. Congratulations on just a wonderful, amazing career. Thank you for being so kind to me over the course of the last few years. And I'll tell you, you're such a great example for, I guess, a still sort of young broadcaster like myself of what a long, successful career looks like broadcasting in Major League Baseball. Thanks so much, and best of luck with everything coming up for you.
Well, Sam, I'm so proud of you. You paid your dues in the minor leagues. You're in the big leagues with, two of the greatest guys I've ever met on radio. Love the game. Be there for the fans, and you're going to do just fine. You're going to have a great career for a long, long time. So best of luck to you, Sammy, and everybody here.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, before this series started between the Padres and Mariners in Seattle, Mariners did have a major injury that they had to deal with yesterday, putting their star catcher, Cal Raleigh, on the IL yesterday because of a right oblique strain. So the Padres will miss Raleigh in this series. Doing the catching tonight for the Mariners instead is Johnny Pereda. He's batting ninth. So that was the major injury entering this series. No Cal Raleigh. He is on the IL because of a right oblique strain. Let's take a look at some of the scores from around the major leagues with the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
We have a number of games going on right now. Pirates ahead of the Phillies 8-5 in Pittsburgh in the ninth inning. The Blue Jays and Tigers are tied at 2 in the ninth inning in Detroit. Nationals lead the Orioles 3-2 in D.C. in the ninth. The Reds lead the Guardians 3-1 in Cleveland in the seventh. Marlins 2, Rays 7 in Tampa Bay in the eighth inning. Brewers and the Twins in Minnesota in the eighth inning. Brewers ahead 3-2. Red Sox and the Braves tied at 2 in Atlanta in the seventh. The Yankees blanking the Mets right now. Subway Series in New York in the seventh inning. Cubs and the White Sox in Chicago 4-3. Cubs in front in the fifth inning. Rangers and the Astros in Houston in the fifth inning. Astros leading 1-0. Royals lead the Cardinals 2-0 in St. Louis in the fourth. The Diamondbacks ahead of the Rockies 6-1 in Colorado in the second. Couple of games yet to begin aside from this one. Dodgers and the Angels in Anaheim at 6:38. And finally, Giants and the A's in Sacramento at 6:40. And we'll have much more on all those games coming up a little bit later during our post-game coverage. First pitch coming up at 6:40 in Seattle. Padres going for a win in this series opener. Let's give you our keys to tonight's game.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Rock and Block Turf and Hardscapes. Beautiful artificial turf that stays green all year long. Trust and experience. The job isn't done until it's done right. See them at rockandblocklandscape.com.
Key number 1, make it happen against Hancock. Mariners righty Emerson Hancock had a down outing against the White Sox last week. He allowed 5 runs in 6 innings. That came after a start where he struck out a career-high 14 in 7 innings against the Kansas City Royals. Hancock enters today with a 3.21 ERA on the season. He pitched 6 innings and allowed just a 2-run home run to Xander Bogaerts back on April 15th in San Diego. Hancock has been good against the Padres in his career, a 2.30 ERA in 3 career starts against them. So, key number 1, can the Padres handle Emerson Hancock today? That's the first key. Key 2, Pacific Northwest pop from the bats. Padres are 6-9 in their past 15 games. In that span, they're averaging under 4 runs per game and batting 185 as a team. Look, been no secret. The Padres offense has struggled as a collective. That includes striking out less. They got to try to strike out less. The Padres struck out 36 times in their series against the Brewers, their most in a 3-game series since August of 2023. So a little pop, a little less strikeouts. Key number 2. Key number 3, a bounce back against the M's for Randy V. The Padres have won 7 of Randy Vasquez's 8 starts this season, but one of his tougher outings of the year came against the Mariners back on April 15th. He went a season-low 4 innings that day, allowed 4 runs on 5 hits. He also walked a season-high 4 against Seattle back at Petco Park. So a better outing today for Randy Vasquez in his second start of the season against the Mariners. And that's a look at our keys to today's game. When we come back, we tell you about one Mariner hitter in particular you got to keep an eye on. First pitch coming up at 6:40 in Seattle on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we continue to get you ready for this series opener in Seattle. Our pregame coverage brought to you by EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com or call 760-350-3338. Let's tell you what to watch for.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For, presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovements.com.
Well, I said before the break that I would focus on one Mariner hitter in this lineup to focus on, but I'm throwing that out the window. I'm going to give you 3 because the 2, 3, 4 hitters in this Seattle lineup, they're all swinging the bat well right now. Julio Rodriguez batting .309 with 13 runs scored, 6 home runs in his last 22 games. Josh Naylor, his last 23 games, batting .356 with 5 doubles, 3 home runs, 13 RBIs. He's also stolen 8 bases in that span. And finally, the hottest of them all, Randy Arozarena, the cleanup man. He's batting .452 in his last 8 games with 8 runs scored, a home run, 4 RBIs. He's getting on base in the last 8 games. And how about this? A .528 clip. So the middle of this order, 2, 3, 4. look out. Randy Vasquez has to be very, very careful against these big Seattle hitters tonight. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. When we come back, we send things up to T-Mobile Park and the Pacific Northwest. Jesse Agler, Tony Gwynn Jr. standing by, ready to go. They'll have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game coverage. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.